Hey, how's it going, guys? Taryn Thompson here from Christchurch, New Zealand. Am I ready to bring you this training tonight? It's going to be kick ass. Now, I am functioning off of very little sleep, so I need you to bear with me. I've been having an amazing time in Auckland, kicking it with my friends, and we've stayed out till all hours of the morning. And so now I'm back in Christchurch and I have something great to share with you guys. Tonight we're going to be talking about how you can get your body back without rebounding. Okay, even if you've tried a lot of times and failed. And you can see that I've got this whiteboard behind me, so I'm going to give you a bit of a framework to work with tonight. And when I saw this framework, and it was in a different context, but when I saw it, it completely changed the way that I viewed my behavior, which helped me significantly in any other area of life that I wanted to apply it to. And it for sure works here. So guys, tonight, this is going to be for you if you are someone who has tried a lot of things and have berated yourself when you have not been able to stick to it. When you decided that you were ready to make a change, and perhaps you did make some changes, but then you backslid and you've not been able to pick up the ball again. Perhaps you are in a situation where you are feeling great and you are on track. Funnily enough, this is going to be for you too. So, hey Brett, hey Kevin, good to see you guys on. Thanks for your support, and guys, I just want to let you know, in case you missed it, this training tonight is going to be kick-ass. So I want you to just think of like 2 or 3 other people who you might know are going through a similar place to where you are at, or you know, they're going to get value from tonight. So go ahead and click the share button, and let's get a great conversation going tonight. And hey Jess, good to see you on. Hey Kevin. So let's sort of start off with the obvious. If you are following a great system or you have a plan, awesome. That's great news. But chances are is that you've probably had plans and systems in the past, and that hasn't worked. And so the variable here is really you. Now, we know that systems and plans work. Yep, there are some that may be more effective than others, that might be more of a fit for you than others, but let's just assume that the system or the plan that you are following is a total win. The only other variable really is you. So, as we go through the framework tonight, I'm going to be writing up on the whiteboard. Let's sort of start where you might be at right now. So right now you might be feeling a little bit irritable. When you're feeling irritable, you're sort of just not really content with where you're at. You might wake up in the morning and you're a little bit tired. You know, you might think about waking up for a little bit longer than usual, but then you finally get yourself out of bed. Energy is okay, it's not on point, but don't worry, because in a few days your energy will be on point. Maybe you wake up in the morning and one of the things that you need to get yourself going is coffee. I know what it's like. It's kind of like, you know, things are not terrible, but things are not great, and so you're not going to make any significant changes, but you might pull the reins in a little tighter on whatever system or diet or way of eating or exercising. You might pull the reins in just a little tighter, or that's your intention anyway. You might feel a little bit grumpy and quick to get into a disagreement with your partner or perhaps with the kids. But it's not too bad, and you know that if you just pull the reins in, that's going to go away. But the thing is that you don't, which leads to more complaints. So we go from irritability to complaint. Now, when you get to this point, you're kind of waking up in the morning and you're just a little bit more than just slightly tired. It's been over a week, we're getting in 2 weeks, might even be getting into the 3rd week right now, and generally when you look across the board, you've been feeling pretty tired. And you notice that come the afternoon, after lunch, you start to crash in the afternoon. From 1:30, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock on, the day just really starts to become a drag. And that's when you're starting to reach for maybe your 3rd, maybe your 4th, maybe even more of your coffee quota for the day. And you know that it's not ideal, but you're going to kick it at some point. And so really caffeine and stimulants is just what you need to actually be able to get through the rest of the day, because you've got shit to do and you can't be mucking around. You might notice that your knees are a little bit sore, that when you're exercising you're not feeling as on point. Maybe you've let a few days in between go, and it's getting busier and you're snoozing a little longer, so exercise is starting to slip. So you're starting to notice a bit more of the complaints. Your diet it's on the rocks, but you can still pull the reins in. You tell yourself you should be eating better, but then also other things have started to take priority and perhaps you don't have the time. Can you guys relate to this? When you start off at irritable, then we start to move into more complaining. Can you relate to feeling like this when you start to feel like you're losing the battle a little? The battle's not lost, but you're feeling that it's heading in that direction. If you feel like you can relate to that, guys, give me some feedback so I know that I'm on the right track. Give me some hearts or some thumbs up. When you get to this point, if you aren't able to pull the reins in, which usually is the case, you move into the next part, which is a bit of anxiety. Okay, so when you start to feel anxiety, it's like the feeling of when you are not really coping that well. So anxiety is really a state of mind where the inability to be able to cope is starting to set in, because the irritability is increasing and the complaints are increasing, and you don't really feel like you're able to deal with all the symptoms that your body is presenting you. You don't really feel like you can deal with the day very well. You start to notice that maybe towards the end of the day, instead of being on the wind down, your heart races and you have trouble getting to sleep. Perhaps your mind is racing and you just can't stop thinking about work or about your finances or about your kids or about your marriage or about your relationship or so-and-so at work who's been an egg face. There's just, instead of you being able to have a good night's sleep, your sleep starts to really become affected. Maybe you're not sleeping through the night and you're waking up in the middle of the night. Maybe you are getting up to pee more frequently than you would usually do. These issues were perhaps there before, but now it's actually causing anxiousness and your chest starts to tighten. Maybe the kids get sick and you feel like things are starting to stack on top of one another. Oh my gosh, school holidays are coming. How am I going to deal with school holidays? The kids are going to be at home. The house is a mess. I just don't feel I can keep on top of keeping the house clean. There's so much washing and the kitchen is in a state. How am I going to afford to be able to take time off because Jenny is sick and then the brother gets sick and so on? And things start to feel like they're just mounting on top of you. Plus, you've also got some deadlines to meet, and stress is just really starting to get the bottom of you, is starting to get the best of you. Your self-confidence starts to get low. You basically conclude that you just don't have time really to be healthy, and although what you were doing was working before, you'll get back to that when things ease up a little, because you literally just don't have the time. Oh, and by the way, also, your sex drive is low and none of you are really getting much action, and if you are, you're probably not feeling very connected. So, this whole state of anxiety is such a horrible place to be, and when you're in that state, what follows? is depression. Now, when we get into a state of depression, you know, there's two kinds. There's like, you know, the clinical depression, when actually your body's chemistry is messed up, and you know, if you stay in depression for long enough, you can get to the place where your whole biochemistry is actually being affected for sure. But when you do get to depression after having been in anxiety for too long, it's basically like you fall in love with sleep. When you the thought of hearing your alarm clock in the morning is giving you anxiety and causing more depression. And when you do hear the alarm clock in the morning, you wake up and the first thought in your mind is that you want to go back to sleep. And sleep is just a really, really great strategy that a lot of people use for just not wanting to be present or not wanting to address the day. So one of my friends just messaged me and said, I've got a great skill for writing backwards. True, because of the reflection. I got it. Okay, so, you know, when you get to this point and you start to hit that level of despair, you know, it's a real low point, and any remnants of whatever kind of diet that was being followed is really way far out the window, right? And maybe there are elements of it that, you know, that hint themselves there. So maybe you're still going to the supermarket buying a whole bunch of vegetables, but perhaps the vegetables are starting to go off in the fridge because they're not being consumed. The fruit bowl by the end of the week, well, the fruit's kind of, you know, moldy, not looking ideal, and so maybe there's food wastage. So there's some habits that are there, but because you're not able to follow through because of where you're at, you know, the diet really is long gone. So, you know, if you can relate to having felt like you've been at this stage before, maybe you're in this stage right now and you're like, oh my gosh, I so hear what she's saying right now, then give me some likes, give me some feedback. I really don't like doing these and feeling like I'm talking to myself. So if I'm on the right track here, let me know, because, you know, I love doing Facebook Lives like this, and, you know, it's really part of my greater purpose to be helping you guys and helping people with just being able to live their very best life in their very best body with their very best energy. And so if this is you and you can relate to being at this part of your journey, then let me know. Awesome. Okay, cool. Thanks for your feedback. So then, you know, following depression, if you've been there for too long, yes, remember it can change your biochemistry and can lead to clinical depression. But let's say for the most part, for the majority, that we're going to be just in a depressive state where we want to tune out, zone out, you know, watch more Netflix than normal. Instead of heading out for exercise, we're watching more of the TV series. In fact, we've started more TV series and watching more movies, and it's just a strategy for zoning out, more drinking, maybe having a few more ciggies than what you would normally have. Maybe you start smoking again. Do you see the whole environment here is just like, it's not a healthy one. Then from there, we move into death. Now, hopefully that's not the death of you, but it is the death of something, and it could be the death of exercise. It could be the death of whatever diet it was that you were hanging on to. Maybe at this point you actually stopped buying some of the things that you were buying completely because it didn't work and we've thrown it out the window. Maybe that died. You know, at best, hopefully that's all that died. But maybe, and what I've seen a lot, and it's happened to me, and that's how come I know, is that it could be worse, and it could be the death of a hope. It could be a death of a hope or an idea that there could be a different version of you, your very best version of you. It could be the death of an idea that you had for living your best life with your kids and your partner. You know, it could be that you decide that that's not possible for you and you decide to just settle. And when you're feeling these kinds of feelings, it's really a bit of a grieving process that you're in, and you really just don't care what anyone's got to say about anything, really, because you're grieving the death of whatever it is that died, whether it be the exercise that you were doing, the diet that you were trying to follow, or worse still, whether it was the hope of what could have been or what could be. And you really start to get quite angry at yourself here. You can get angry that you even wasted your money. How could you even begin to think that, why did I think that that it was going to work for me this time? Why did I spend my money again on something that doesn't work? I should have known better. Perhaps you don't feel like you've gotten any smarter or learned from your mistakes before, and you can really start to get into a real self-loathing state and really berate yourself. And, guys, you probably do it too. You are human. But what I've seen is that women, we do it so terribly. And you can spend a lot of time directing that anger and that energy at yourself, and then what happens is that you can start to attract other people into your life who are in that same place, and it just is not an ideal place to be, and therefore leads to you being in the pit. And the pit is like the bottom of bottoms. And if you've been here before, and you definitely would have, and maybe you're there right now and it doesn't feel good at all, but if you can see the cycle that we're moving through, and if you can relate to the different stages, for goodness sake, share it on your social media, because there are going to be other people out there who are going through the same cycle and don't know that it's normal, that it's completely normal. And so when you are in the pit, the state of mind or the way of thinking is, I'm going to be this way forever, so I might as well enjoy it. And here's where you get weight gain, right? And it may not, your weight may not even be an issue for you, but let's say, because you're on here tonight, that it is. Let's say, if you are someone that has yo-yo dieted, and it's a trait that you have that has shown up in your life repetitively, then here is where you can tend to spend a little bit too much time, like just a little too long. Now, I want you to know it's normal to get to the pit. Everyone goes to the pit. It's just a part of the process, but how long you stay there can often determine how much weight you gain, and obviously if you're in the pit for a long time, then the weight that you gain is going to become quite significant. But the good news is that you eventually see or hear, and hopefully, because you're open to hearing someone's maybe experience of something that they did successfully, you might see something that someone did and it looked like a great idea. Perhaps a friend shared with you what it was that they did successfully, and I don't know what it is, but something that you see or hear gives you hope. And fortunately, I've spent a lot of time in a place called hope, and so I recognize it very well. But when you're in the hope stage, the state of mind you're in here is where you start to think, I've got to do this for my kids. Like, I've got to do this for my marriage. I've got to do this because I've got people watching me who are important to me. There are people outside of me, like my family, my kid, my parents, whoever it is that's watching you, especially if you're in any kind of position of influence. And I personally believe that everyone has some degree of influence, of course. And usually it's the people who are closest to us that are affected by where it is that we're operating. And so you start to think about, when you're in the state of hope, you start to think about who you should do this for. And then hopefully, and this is another trait of women, especially mothers, you start to think, to hell with it, I've got to do something for me, right? Can you relate to that? Have you ever gotten to that stage where you've been like, I'm doing this for me. I've put my family first, I've put my kids first, I've put my husband first, I've put the house first, I've put my friends first. I've put so many things first that I've forgotten about me. And so it's at that point when you're in that hope stage that you start to think about the possibilities. Okay, so possibility is great, and it's a shite load better than being in the pit, right? And from hope, we then move into anxiety. Now, anxiety again, right? This is an interesting one because this kind of anxiety is not exactly the same as the anxiety that you had before. This anxiety is more like a bit of a feeling of the unknown. Haven't tried this before, excited, nervous. Like definitely nervous, but hopeful, excited, maybe this could work. And your brain starts to engage in the possibility of how things could look in the future, how things could look just next week if you started to feel a little bit different, how things could look a month from now. What would work be like, my ability to deal with my kids be like, how could I, it would be so much easier for me to parent if I had more energy. It would be great for my husband if he could have a piece of me back. You know, maybe it'd be great for my husband if he was able to get a piece of me. You know, these are the kinds of thoughts that maybe you have, the possibility of having more self-confidence and being able to step out there and you know, feel confident in whatever it is that you have to say, which is a sad thing about confidence sometimes. When we lose it, you also lose your voice, or this idea that people don't hear you, or that you don't have anything good to say or anything really of value to offer. And so this feeling of anxiety is a bit more of a positive anxiety. It's a more of a nervous, excited. And so even though you're thinking, I hope it works this time, it might not work, but it's possible, you decide to go for it, right? And so here is where we move from hope through anxiety, and then we get to joy. And obviously joy is nice. And we, you know, when we move into joy and we start to think, oh my gosh, it's working. Yes, like I'm getting results and I feel so much better. The future looks a whole lot more promising. In fact, you're not just thinking about the future a month from now, but your brain starts to project 6 months from now. Gosh, if I could just lose 10, 15, 20 kilos, you know, what a difference that would make to my fill in the blanks, XYZ. You know, what a difference that would make to my whole entire life. What a difference it would make to summer. Oh my gosh, a new wardrobe. Oh, I would just do anything to wake up in the morning and not feel like everything was just so tight and uncomfortable. I would like to start thinking about opening up my drawer or opening up my closet, and I have more than just 2 options of things to wear that make me feel good, you know. Joy is where you're waking up easier, and actually you're waking up easy and you're on point and you're sharp, and maybe even wake up just before your alarm clock goes off and people are commenting, right? There's something about you. You're vibrating at a great level. You've got more confidence. You know that what you have to say matters, and you make yourself be heard. And so as your confidence increases and as you feel good, we start to it's a bit more of the ego that is getting nurtured here. You know, the version of you that is vibrating at a real high level and feeling awesome, is your ego also gets stroked here. And it's not a bad thing, you know, everyone has an ego. It's not, you know, and you've had success, and it's great success and well deserved, and you should own whatever compliments are coming your way. But ego is ego, and you know, you can't stay in joy forever, because that's not realistic, and it's just not life, and no one stays in joy forever. And I think here is often where we can get tripped up in thinking that people who are doing really well, perhaps some of you have a perception that I do really well all the time, you know, with my body, and then are surprised when you see that in the past I haven't, and that I also slip up. You know, you start to have these ideas about people who you perceive are possibly experiencing joy all the time, and why can't you, right? And so if this is something that you can relate to, and you've been here and not really understood why you can't stay here. It's just because it's life and you can't stay in joy forever. Right, so you feel great, everything's awesome, people are telling you look amazing, you're like, I know. You have more confidence, but then because you can't stay in joy forever, you lose focus. And that's just what happens with the ego. And when you lose focus, you start to maybe move away from the system. Your habits start to slip, whatever program or structure it is that you are following. You know, you start to maybe not follow it as assertively. Now, 100% of following any kind of system, I just want to be clear, is not necessary. But even your 80% starts to slip to like 75, maybe even 70%. You know, instead of saving wine for the weekends, you start to celebrate the day because of how accomplished and how well you've done. You're like comfortable, right? You lose focus. And so now we're not just celebrating your best friend's birthday that happened on the weekend, but also now we're celebrating because there was a win at work. We're celebrating because we've got the kids down early. We're celebrating because we haven't had me and you time in ages, darling. And so we're celebrating having me and you time. You know, there's more celebrations, there's more accomplishments that need to be celebrated with maybe wine or maybe extra meals or maybe richer meals. I guess the ego starts to get a little bit inflated and you start to relax. And instead of, you know, having a whatever version of a healthy snack you were having, maybe you start to move from dark cacao chocolate to maybe the milk chocolate and maybe milk chocolate and something else. You know, basically the point is that you start to slip. You're losing focus. And although we don't see the effects of lost focus right away, it does eventually catch up with us. But before it catches up with us, we move from losing focus to bored. Because you're getting a little bit bored of maybe how you're exercising. Getting maybe a little bit bored of what you're eating. You know, maybe it's the same old, you haven't done a great job with variety. Maybe it's that you're bored of meal prep, maybe of the same flavors of whatever it is that you're having. You start doing the lazy version of keto. You start to slip up on your meal prep, maybe your portion sizes are getting a bit better, but are getting a bit bigger, but basically you're bored, right? Intermittent fast is now a late breakfast. It's like brunch. Right, so you start to get complacent because things are just boring and you want to expand a little and try some new things, and you know, you start to really move more and more away from the system because you're bored, right? Which leads to irritable. And when you get irritable with your body, you don't feel good. Your body starts to not cooperate very well. You're waking up in the morning a little more tired than usual. You start to reach out for coffee. Right, which leads to complaints. And when you get to complaints, it's like you can start to feel that your brain fog is kicked back in, that you're crashing in the afternoon, energy is terrible, your knees are sore, exercise doesn't feel as good. You start to leave a few more days in between. You know that it wasn't that long ago since you were feeling good, right? It wasn't that long ago before you were in joy, and so you think I could still pull the reins back in, but then you don't because you don't have time, and then you start to feel anxiety, right? And so you can see, and you just end up going around and around the cycle. Now, that's just life. You know, it doesn't mean anything. It just is life. You just move through the cycle. Now, the hope is that when you're aware of where you are in the cycle, know what's coming and what you left behind can make things a heck of a lot easier. Now, I said that today we were going to be talking about, you know, how to reach your goals even if you've failed without rebounding. You know, I believe that every time we move around the cycle is an opportunity to learn how to do one better, right? It doesn't mean that when you're in depression that the death of something isn't coming, because it will. The death of something will happen. You know, for me, there's been, let's take exercise for example. There has been the death of a lot of exercise. I used to work out 5-6 times a week, do a lot of high intensity interval training. I did a lot of fasted exercise. I did a lot of heavy weight training, and I don't do that anymore. So there was the death of that exercise. But then what came through on this end is the hope and the joy, where I found Pilates, and I loved Pilates, and it was awesome. And then that went and did full circle, got bored, started to complain about it, had a little bit of anxiety about something to do with exercise, and then found yoga, so there was the death of that, and so on. And so everything has this cycle. And when you realize where you are in the cycle, you can make it mean something different. You can make it mean whatever it is that you want to make it mean, as long as the meaning serves you. Now, one of the things I want to point out, which really, really helps me when I get into around here, right? Depression, death, and pit. Now, it's normal to want to, when you feel fear, when you feel depression, when you feel anxiety, when you feel all those feelings that are negative, when they don't feel good, it's normal to feel those things and want to resist them and push them away and ignore them and even escape them. And when we feel those feelings, it can cause frustration, and that makes you feel them more, which makes you more frustrated. And what I have learned, and this is something that I have learned having gone through this cycle many, many times. And interestingly enough, I actually move through the cycle a lot quicker these days. So one of the things that I would do is when I would feel fear or anxiety or depression, or something there was the death of something, and when I got to the pit, when I would feel that way, I just sit in it, and I just really feel it. And instead of trying to escape it, I have learned to just be present with that feeling. It's an emotion, we all feel it, and I sit in it and be present with it. And I try not to, I don't put myself in a position where I need to see a lot of people. I just really get present with it, and I ask myself, what am I not seeing? What have I got to learn in this situation? What am I not seeing? What have I got to learn? What am I not seeing? What have I got to learn? And I ask myself this over and over and over again until my brain engages and sees something different, which helps me move through the pit and into hope way sooner. And what happens if you move through this, as you move through the cycle and learn to know what's ahead of you, is that you can be at joy and feel great and really, sit in joy and be present with that one too. But you could also know that losing focus is coming. And so instead of letting the ego fully inflate, you balance it out with knowing, but bored is coming. And of course, we all get bored. It's just human nature. And irritable is coming. And so I might not let the reins go so much like I did last time, right? And so the more and more that you go around the cycle, the more you've learned, if you've learned, and that's the key, is that if you examine your behavior and try to anticipate where you're going, and know that if you can be better as you move through the next one, then as you're moving through each of these cycles, you will not backslide as far as what you've backslid in the past. Your yo-yo dieting won't be so much of a yo-yo. Your weight will steady out. You'll start being in a position of influence and being able to help other people who are struggling. And this is just what has happened to me. So Mel, definitely. Oh, and Alana, you're welcome. And so Mel, acknowledging that it's normal to be at the current stage that we're at, totally normal. And when you know what's ahead of you, then you can move into that a little more gracefully, knowing that if you're at anxiety and depression's coming, knowing that if you're at depression and the death of something is coming, and if you're at the death of something and something just died but you've got to head into the pit, know that you can sit with it, be present with it, and ask your brain, what am I not seeing, and what can I learn from this, right? Okay, all right. I hope that was really helpful for you guys. And look, it's a great framework. And what I'm going to do is put this in a little PDF, and I actually really just encourage you to send me a message to my like my private messenger, send me an email, whatever, text me, I don't care. But however it is that you contact me, if you want the PDF, I suggest that you just put it in your room somewhere. Put it on the bathroom mirror. Put it on the back of the toilet door. But seeing this framework for what's going on in life, what's going on in the managing and happening of your goals and the goals that you want to meet with your health and your body, having that present and there that you can see and get into your subconscious, it'll help you significantly. So on that note, I'm going to sign off here and go and hang out with my man. And if you want this framework, send me a message and I'll get it out to you. So on that note, thanks for showing up tonight, guys. Thanks for your support, and I will see you on Thursday night for the next one. We're going to be talking about estrogen dominance, I feel. Okay, have a great night.